My name is Thomas Clark, and welcome to the Takeoff Podcast, where myself and guests help equip you to bring the peace of God to the place you live, work, learn, and play, all for His glory. Every problem is a discipleship problem. Being a disciple of Christ does not guarantee that we will not have problems. It does, however, give us the tools to face the challenges of life that come our way. My worldview is that Christ transforms culture, and He does it through His followers. The goal of Takeoff is to equip you for movemental thinking when it comes to making disciples. And we are in episode 2 of season 5, dealing with the fact that God sends a people, not just individuals, but instead He sends a people. And it's imperative, as we discuss this, to understand that God's mission is never carried by isolated Christians, but by a sent people who have been shaped together by Him and for Him. In the last episode, one of the things that we established was that God is the sender and that mission begins with Him. It's His mission, not ours. It's His. And so today what I want to do is push that further, because God does not just send someone, He actually sends a people. And no, it's not bad grammar. I'm talking about a collective when we talk about sending a people. Sometimes those who follow Christ say things such as, I'm trying to be missional, or I'm trying to do my part. I want to do the best I can do. But in truth, Scripture rarely speaks in isolated terms. It rarely speaks in individualistic terms. And this is not a criticism of the United States or compare and contrast U.S. any place else, but the United States, on a scale of looking at nations around the world, is actually one of the most, or the most individualistic cultures and countries in the world. Culture being the overall culture of the United States. Yes, there are some pockets and people groups that are not as individualistic, even within the United States, but by and large, as a nation, as a people, the United States is. But outside of the U.S., there are many nations and cultures that are what's called collective. And when we look at the Bible, actually, and Christianity, followers of Christ, is meant to be a collective. The Bible assumes plural discipleship, not individualistic, not isolated, not isolation, but plural. So here's one of the things I want you to consider as we just a few minutes into this particular episode. What if the reason mission feels heavy is because we've been trying to carry it alone when God designed it to be shared? His mission is bigger than me, it's bigger than you, it's bigger than any one of us can handle individually. It's meant to be shared. And perhaps that's why sometimes it feels it's too much, or I don't know if I can do this, because we've been trying to do things by ourselves. Some have been trying to be the Lone Ranger. My dad used to talk about no Lone Rangers. I remember as a child, and I'm telling my age, I have no qualms or shame to say how old I am, born back in 1971, but there was a show called The Lone Ranger. And I used to like to watch that show. Some of y'all, I say that, I know some of y'all heard nodded here. You remember that? Others like, what? I never heard of that. Well, look it up when you get a chance. Not right now. Engage with me. But when you have a chance, look up The Lone Ranger. But the thing about it is, and the reason my dad would say no Lone Rangers when it came to what we did in ministry, the Lone Ranger was by himself. Yes, he had an accomplice named Tonto, but by and large, he was doing things alone, doing things by himself. And honestly, you all, it's challenging, because that's not what God designed us to do. Many times burnout happens, but it's disguised as faithfulness. So people feel burnt out and think that it's a sign or a badge of honor to wear, showing how faithful we are to Jesus because we're so tired. No, 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 no. Being burnt out, being tired is not a sign of faithfulness. It's not a sign or a badge of honor to wear to show how much we really love the Lord or how dedicated we are to the Lord. That's not what he wants. And ministry does take work. The mission takes work, but not to the extent of being burned out. You show me someone who's burned out, I'm going to show you someone who actually is taking on more than they should take on or the Lord wants them to take on. Sometimes we over spiritualize independence because for whatever reason, and the reasons can be varied, but sometimes because we think that it means that we're so dedicated and so committed, and so we're going to go do this by ourselves, or no one else knows what they're doing, so I have to be the one to do this. God is counting on me and dependent on me. He made a whole world without you. And I'm not trying to be smart or condescending, but I'm hoping that you see he created everything without you or I. So no, it's not about us. Yet he does want to use us, but use us collectively. He wants to use us collectively, you all. You see, God never sent solo heroes. He always sent a people. That's what he did repeatedly throughout his word. We see that happening. So what he does in the Bible, we see he always forms a people. He forms a people in order to send a people. Let me give you some examples. God formed a family back in Genesis 12 with Abraham. So he forms his family and then he sends. You see what he does? As he tells Abraham he's going to make him a great nation. He tells him to go, but prior to leaving and actually following through being sent, he receives the promise of a family being formed. Not just Abraham. And for years, it was Abraham and Sarah, but their family was in him and it came out of him because he formed this family. He formed a nation, Israel. There's many great things he wanted to be done for his people, again, by his people. But it was not just one person. It was not just Abraham. It was not just Isaac. It was not just Jacob. He formed a nation. He formed a body called the church, capital C church. I'm not talking about the local expression of the church now. I'm talking about the capital C church, the church of Jesus Christ. He formed that body from the beginning. Again, he forms a people. And the thing about the covenant with Abraham, with Israel, with his body, with the church, is a covenant is always communal. You don't see covenants to just an individual in the Bible. It's always about a people. So even when he talked to Abraham, made a covenant, it wasn't just about Abraham. It was about the family, ultimately the nation that would come out of him. Because it's bigger than just you or I, bigger than just one person. It's about the communal aspect or the people that he wants to use. So again, I made reference to it in Genesis 12. He says, I will make you a great nation. Tells Abraham that. In Exodus, he says, I will be your God. You will be my people. In 1 Peter chapter 2, God tells these disgruntled saints in Asia Minor, he says, you are a chosen people. You are royal priesthood, collective. See, God's solution, you all, to this broken world has never been a superstar. It's always been a people shaped together. And again, this is not a criticism because I'm really talking to people who want to know more about the disciple-making movement, start a disciple-making movement, to enhance the disciple-making movement. That's what I'm talking to. So if that's not you, I'm glad you're here, and please engage and be open to what the Holy Spirit is saying, but please don't get offended because I'm really, again, I told you I'm talking to. But the truth of the matter is God never said I'm going to send the superstar minister, and that minister is going to be the one to shake up the world. He sent the one he sent to shake up the world is one who he created the world through and for and by, Jesus Christ. Other than that, it was all of us collectively meant to address this broken world. So when we look at the life and the ministry specifically of Jesus, we understand then that Jesus, you all, didn't just call disciples. He formed a community. That's what he did. Jesus could have discipled them one at a time. It would have taken him a long time to do it, but he could have. But instead, what he did, he called 12. And he brought them together and shaped them together in a community, as a people group. They ate together. They slept together. They traveled together. They hung out together. I'm sure they laughed together. They faced challenges together. And I was hesitant to use the word challenges because, a challenge for us is not a challenge for Jesus, but they faced those things. They faced it all together, you all, because that's what's necessary as it relates to being with Christ. And as he did this with them, you all, as he formed this community, formation happened. And I want you to notice something. Formation happened during the tension that they had. There was often a pulling within and sometimes a pulling from outside forces. They had tension. There are people in their own families who may have wanted them to come back home sometimes or not go, or there was a pulling. Some were business, some were entrepreneurs. There was a tension. I'm walking with this man, but I have a business that I've left behind. There was a tension. But yes, something's being formed in the midst of that tension. Formation happened in conflict. One of the things that I learned when you form teams is you have what's called forming. But when a team is formed of different individuals, or I should say, let me say it differently, when a group comes together of different individuals, because not a team yet, is going on its way to become a team. It starts off as a group, though. And when a group is initially formed different individuals, you have the forming phase or stage. Then you have storming, because you have a bunch of individuals that have to be molded into a team. So you have a bunch of different personalities and ideas and ideals, ways of doing things, different cultures that come together. Now, I'm talking about race or ethnicity. I'm talking about culture in terms of just how people do what they do. And you're trying to come around and develop a unique culture to that particular group to become a team. So you have that conflict. You have forming, then you have storming. And once you get past the storming, you go to what's called norming, because now culture is developed. And it's no longer how you do things or I do things. Now it's how we do things, because we're in this together. And then ultimately, once you get to norming, you go to performing, because now you're a well-oiled machine. It doesn't mean you still don't have some times of conflict, but it means that there's a culture that's established to how the team, because no longer a group, you're a team, and how the team deals with it. That's what Jesus did. They had conflict. Yet at the same time, they went from forming to storming to norming to performing. And actually did the best performing after Jesus had ascended. Formation happened with disciples of Jesus in their shared life. So what happened was they needed the community. They needed one another, which meant they needed what Alan Hirsch says is liminality, which leads to communitas. Liminality is, in a nutshell, the rite of passage. It is a time where the group, that team comes together, and where they come together initially as a group, but they become a team because they have a shared experience, a shared challenges they go through. something that no one else deals with except them together at that time. Now the others have not dealt with it in the past, but at that time there's no one else with whom they can talk or speak or depend on or rely on for help. They really learn how to work together. That time of liminality. It comes from what happened in an African tribe where they take the young boys and the rite of passage, and I forget the age when this happens, but they take them out into the woods basically and leave them there. 8, 9, 10 boys, a group of boys, and they have to deal with the elements out there for a certain period of time and eat and essentially survive. But what happens is a lifelong bond is formed. A lifelong bond is formed as they learn to work together. Not a bunch of individuals trying to survive, but they have each other's back. They trust each other. That develops. And by the time they come back, it's what's called communitas. It's deeper than community. It's deeper than community. And once that communitas is forged, the men who would have led them out there, who years prior went through that same experience, they now have a shared experience with these boys and these men. These men who've gone through the rite of passage have a shared experience with these older men, and they share something that others just don't share. Well, that's what happened with the disciples of Jesus, you all. They had that time of liminality by being with him through the different challenges that they faced and experienced, and seeing what happened and having to learn how to feed multitudes and trust Jesus, having to learn how to live through storms, having to learn how to live when seeing legions of demons and other things that happened. Not to mention the religious and political authorities who wanted to attack them because of Jesus. They had their time of liminality, that rite of passage, but they came out as a team with communitas. See, what Jesus never did, Jesus did not protect them from one another. He didn't isolate them by themselves. And sometimes they disagreed. But what Jesus did, you all, is he allowed the disagreements, but never to the point of being disagreeable. Y'all can disagree, but y'all not gonna fight. Yeah, you ain't gonna fight. You can disagree, but y'all still together. You can disagree, but you're not gonna walk away. Not walk away for that. Now, if you want to walk away, then keep walking. Don't come back. But you're not gonna walk away and then cool off and come. No. We're gonna deal with this. We're gonna deal with this. Again, the forming, storming, norming, performing. We're going to deal with this to get to norming and ultimately performing. And Jesus used community to form them. He used that community to form them. So you had times when Peter and John were at odds. You had times when James and John, they had so much ambition, and one account, their mom comes and says, let my boys, one sit on your right hand, left hand side. Another time, the account says that they went to Jesus and asked the question. And either way, the others became upset. Like, who do they think they are? Who do they think they are? Think they better than us? And Jesus had to check them, James and John, for that. He checked James and John and said something to them about it. They had shared meals. They had shared failures. Again, all of that allowed them to begin to operate and work together in community. Because the truth of the matter is this, as Jesus was discipling them, we'll see that discipleship is personal, but it's never private. It's public. It happens publicly. It happens with others. I understand then we talk about the church, capital C church, not just the local expression of the church, but the capital C church, Jesus Christ. There's only one church. And the church is not a crowd, it's a sent body. Now, why is this important? Because let me contrast for a second, crowd versus community. So we can understand this. A crowd is gathered by interest or a moment, in time. Something's happening right then. A crowd is low commitment. I don't have to do much. I'm a part of a crowd. I don't really do much. A crowd has high anonymity. You don't have to know who I am. I'm just a face in the crowd. A crowd has passive participation, and the crowd is easily dispersed. When a crowd breaks up, it's like a group of individuals. You leave and go back your separate ways. So some of the things crowds form around events. They come together for an event. Once the event is over, they leave. Crowds form around personalities. Perhaps it's some figure that they all come to see, or someone within the crowd has a stronger dominant personality and is able to gather them. But again, when that personality is no longer, what I mentioned earlier about some superstar speaker, a minister, a pastor, whatever, personality. But once that personality is no longer there or in charge, or they move on, the crowd disperses. Crowds are formed around content, crisis, or even convenience. In truth, you can be present in a crowd without being known. You can be influenced with a crowd without being formed by it. And one of the things that the crowd does is the crowd asks, what am I getting from this? I'm in this crowd, but what's in it for me? But community, on the other hand, is bound by shared life. Remember, the community is no longer a group, it's a team. They've come together, it's a team now. So there's a shared life, that communitas. Community is high relational investment, but we're in relationship with each other. If you hurt, I hurt. Something happens to you, it's like it's happened to me. Community has mutual responsibility. There's active participation. For the community to thrive, we all need to do our part. Community have durability over time, because as others come into the community and into the culture that's been created, even as some leave for whatever reason, it was death, they move on, or they go elsewhere to establish something else, like what happened with the disciples when they was dispersed. Yet the community still exists. So communities form around shared values, shared practices, shared story, and shared mission.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Thank you so much for coming by the podcast page. I really appreciate it. Hopefully the information that is shared has and will be able to benefit you and also the people you know. Listen, if it has been, or you believe it will benefit you, I'm asking you to do me two favors. First of all, please follow. Yeah, click follow. That way, every time a new episode is released, you will be alerted and you can stay current on everything that we're talking about. But additionally, I'm going to ask that you consider supporting. Your financial support goes a long way to help me help others in the work that we're doing in creating the disciple-making movements. For your monthly or yearly support, not only will you receive access to episodes before everyone else does, but you also will, on a monthly basis, have a live Q&A with me where I will be able to answer questions based on the episodes, the questions you may have from what's been shared. There's only so much that myself and my guests can say during the podcast recordings, but during the live Q&A, we can take a deeper dive into questions you may have, ways that we've seen it play out and work out, and perhaps even some suggestions that you may have that we may be able to comment on to help you and help equip you to help bring the peace of God to the places you live, work, learn, and play. Thank you again for following and for supporting. I appreciate it. In reality, you cannot be deeply formed by community without being vulnerable, being patient, being accountable, and being present. You can't phone it in and have community. You got to be there and be fully present when you're there also, not just in the flesh, but as well as spirit and body and mind, being present. So the community ask is, who are we becoming together? Yeah, not just what's in it for me. No, who are we becoming together? But now, if we're going to compare and contrast community and a crowd, then we also, because the church is not a crowd, it's embodied, well, let's also look at audience versus a body. The audience, you all, is oriented towards observation. So people can be faces in an audience. And again, I'm not being critical of anyone, but sometimes on Sundays, people come just be a part of the audience, just sit and watch. If you engage with us at the Launchpad Worldwide, one of the things you hear me say frequently is, you're cussing me out if you say you're watching. Don't watch, I want you to engage. That's what Christ wants. He wants us to engage. An audience is defined by consumption. What can I get? What you doing for me? Again, what's in it for me? Same thing with the crowd. What can I get out of this? Consume. An audience, you all, is passive by design. It's one directional. So it's a lot of monologue, not a lot of dialogue. Hardly any dialogue, as a matter of fact, because it's an audience. Now, people can cheer and clap and applaud, but in terms of reciprocating, that really doesn't happen in the audience. An audience is replaceable and interchangeable. You can have again, I'm not criticizing. You got multiple services or multiple times of performances or whatever else. One crowd leaves or audience leaves, another comes in. and you just do it all over again. So an audience listens, it watches, evaluates, and reacts based on that. One of the things the audience asks is, was that good? Was it helpful? And did I like it? And if I didn't, then maybe I don't come back. The audience does not need responsibility, because you're going to do what you're going to do regardless if the audience is there. An audience does not need mutual dependence. So again, I'm dependent on the person who's performing on the stage or I'm from whom I'm consuming to do what they're going to do. The audience does not need participation, nor do they need embodiment. You don't need any of that to be an audience. But yet a body, because that's what Christ formed, a body. I mean, he's sending the people. We're talking about how he sent the people. So what a body is, though, a body is relationally integrated. We're connected in a body. We need each other. A body is mutually dependent. Think about if you, I don't want you to do this, but think about if you stub your toe, your left hand start hurting. Or whatever. Please don't just be literal. You know, yeah, some of y'all know what I mean. You don't, it's just the fact that you hurt one part of the body, other part hurts also. Matter of fact, I broke one of my toes. My big toe, my right foot, I dropped a mixer on it. A mixer, I'm talking about an audio mixer, a big soundboard. So those who know my audio, AV work, you know, it's a big soundboard. I dropped it on my toe and broke it. And because, as the doctor said, you can't set a broke toe, you can't put a cast on it. You just put the one little boot things around it to let it heal. I couldn't put pressure on it, and I never realized how much my big toe was used in pivoting, because it just happens. I don't think about it, at least. Now I think about it now, but I didn't think about it at the time. It was years ago. But I began to overcompensate because I couldn't put pressure on it, and my left hip started hurting because I couldn't put as much pressure on my right toe, my right foot, that is, because my right toe was need to heal from being broken, which meant my left side was doing more work than normal, and my left hip started hurting. Because that's how a body is. A body is mutually dependent. A body is participatory. All parts have to participate. A body is interconnected, it's alive and responsive. So some things a body does, your body moves together, feels together, suffers together, and it adapts together. So the question the body asks is, what's my role and how do we function together? What can I do that helps us, that benefits us. A body cannot exist without connection, contribution, coordination, and care. It can't. So what Christ formed, you all, is the capital C church, okay? Because I'm still talking about the differences. He had a body. He had this group, and not just a bunch of individuals, not just a team. He had a church. He started a church. Not during his time, but ultimately he's the head of the church. So he forms it. Matthew 16 talking about he forms it, but then it comes to fruition in Acts chapter number 2. So when we see church, capital C church, talking about the church of Jesus Christ, it's a family, it's a body, it's a household. Or we know it as oikos, O-I-K-O-S, oikos. That's what the church is. Each metaphor assumes interdependence. It's a family, it's a body, it's a household. A household can consist not just of the people with the same last name or same blood. In the first century, a household, oikos, consisted of anyone connected to it. So some of the servants, children, etc., anyone connected to the household was a part of that oikos. They interconnected. So it assumes interdependence. It assumes a shared responsibility. Everyone has to do their part. That's what happens when we talk about the church. And for us, in the disciple-making movement, then we have APEST, A-P-E-S-T, apostolic, prophetic, evangelist, shepherd, and teaching. Well, APEST, and these are functions, not offices, not hierarchy, not people, not the apostle or the prophet or the evangelist or the shepherd or the teacher. No, apostolic, prophetic, evangelistic, shepherding, teaching, functions. From Ephesians chapter 4. Watch this. But APEST only works in community. You don't need community to be the prophet, but you need community to be prophetic. And that's what God gave. Yes. None of us can embody all 5 functions alone. We can't. We can't be apostolic, prophetic, evangelistic, shepherding, and teaching all by ourselves. We can't. We need others. And not just people who sit in a pulpit. No, we need others across the body who function like this. And maturity requires others. The whole reason God gave those functional gifts, that those ascension functional gifts, is so that maturity can come. And we help each other with that. Please understand, you all, you can attend the local expression of church alone. It is on a Sunday morning or whenever you get together. Whenever you get together. It could be a Tuesday night, it could be a Saturday afternoon, whatever. Whenever you get together, you can attend that alone. But you cannot live sent alone. When he sends you, you can come and sit and watch by yourself. But to go out, and I ain't talking about going door to door, I'm talking about going into his mission. He sends a people. We need others. So let's look at a couple of things, and then we're going to wrap this episode up, and that is why individualized faith breaks mission. In the West, where I live, and some, and this is heard all over the world. I appreciate people all over who are engaging with us. The West is the Western civilization, specifically the United States, but the Western civilization. Discipleship often celebrates independence. Yeah, you're doing it. You're doing it. I'm doing it. You're doing it. You know, and we celebrate that. Western discipleship often rewards self-sufficiency. The more you're able to do, the more people look to you. But mission, which is bigger than the West, is from the Lord. Mission requires mutual submission and shared rhythms. That we submit to each other. We help hold each other accountable. And we have rhythms that we work on together, you all. Mission requires a collective witness. There's no way I can tell people in other contexts what the Lord has done for them, or how, or now even I can follow him how he's moving. But one of the ways it's best done is people in that context. And I can come join them in the context. Yes, we work together. But because I'm not part of that context on a regular basis, unless I'm embedded there, we need the collective witness of those within that context. And we can work together. That's what happens with a team. Where some people are in one context and are able to share, and some of the same team in another context, because they have something in common with people in that context, and able to share. It's a collective witness. No one of us represent everything Christ can do. We need all of us. So we see this in our first, second, and third places also. So first place is where we live, and there, neighbors notice patterns. They don't notice sermons. Your neighbors, our neighbors, see. Again, talking about what we need with this mutual submission and shared witness, shared rhythms, that is, and collective witness, and being on mission. Where we live in the first place, people don't notice the sermon that's been preached, but they do notice the patterns of how we live our life, and with people with whom we associate. In our second place, where we work, what's noticed there, you all, is the fact that credibility comes from consistency. You want the people where you work, you want to have credibility there. How consistent are you with the body of Christ? Not just consistent as an individual. And I'm not being critical when I say this, because sometimes our standards are lower, and I'm consistent. Yeah, but are you consistent as relates to the body of Christ? In our third place, where we hang out at, somewhere typically within a mile of your residence, where you're liable to see the same people over and over again, so that you can be in position to make disciples because you have something in common and you have a shared history. Well, community recognizes community. When you're in community with other followers of Christ, people are in a community how they are. They recognize that. They recognize that there's something different about you all. See, people do not encounter Jesus through isolated believers. They encounter Jesus through a visible people. That's what happens. That's what happens. So, you all, here's the thing I want to ask you. I promise I had the one more thing, and we wrapping up. And here it is. Here it is. As we conclude, I want to ask you a question. I want you to really have a time of reflection and ask yourself this. When have I tried to live out God's mission alone, when He actually intended me to do it with others? Again, consider that. When have you tried? But ask yourself, when have I tried to live out God's mission alone when He intended me to do it with others? And this does not make you feel guilty, but I just want you to be honest with yourself. And finally, what's your I will statement? Every week, I ask you to give your I will statement. So here it is. This week, I will intentionally move from isolation to collaboration by, and fill in the blank. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to move from isolation to collaboration? Again, this week, I will intentionally move from isolation to collaboration by, and perhaps it's by inviting someone into a rhythm with you. At the launching pad, we in our mission communities and microchurch, we have a 2x2x2 rhythm where up, in, and out, 2 times of worship inclusive of DBS. I'm not talking about Sunday. I'm talking about in within the mission community microchurch, 2 times of social momentum, hanging out together, and just loving on each other. No particular agenda, but usually almost always involving food, and 2 times of serving other people. When this week, I would intentionally move from isolation to collaboration by inviting someone to one of those rhythms. Perhaps your fill in the blank is by sharing responsibility with others to say, hey, help me do this. I can't do this by myself. Perhaps it is exclusively asking for help. Again, sharing responsibility, pass it on, asking for help, or perhaps practicing mutual accountability. I will intentionally move from isolation to collaboration by practicing mutual accountability. I'm going to hold someone accountable and let them hold me accountable. And then who are you going to share with? Who are you going to, and say it out loud, not just think it to them, not just kind of suggest it to them, but no, who are you going to share this with? Remember, you all, mission is shared, sentence is communal. And I'm going to say it now, and you're going to hear the outro in a second. Encourage you to do this again. I'm encouraging you to subscribe, to please share this episode with someone, and to support. For as little as $3 a month, you have access to not only live Q&A, but also bonus material. I go for a few minutes more deeper. We do a deep dive into some things. So yeah, you would, I think you'll be, I'll be glad, but not because of the financial support, but I'll be glad because I would love to share this with you. Thank you so much for engaging. I really appreciate you. And until next time, let's take off. One quick invitation before we close. Takeoff is not built on metrics, hype, or performance. It's built on faithfulness, formation, and presence. If you believe this kind of work matters, you can support the podcast for as little as $3 a month. Supporters receive brief bonus episodes each week and help ensure this podcast remains accessible to people across neighborhoods, cities, and nations. Whether you support financially or simply share the podcast with someone else, thank you for being a part of this movement.